Hello, my name is Lily Sanabria of Master Leadership 360 and the creator and host of Master Leadership Podcast. And I'm so excited to welcome you to our course, Raising Leaders. Module 1, It's All About Influence. Why is it important to raise leaders? One of the big questions in education is how do we prepare our students to thrive in this rapidly changing world and for the future? Well, we certainly don't know what the future holds, but if we prepare our children to lead themselves well, then they will be prepared for any future. So, as parents, alongside our teachers in schools, we take the responsibility of raising the leaders of the future. There are several laws in leadership as curated by Dr. John Maxwell, one of the most significant leaders of our time. So, one of these laws that drives my work with leaders and students is the law of influence, which states that leadership is about influence, nothing more, nothing less. And if we're looking to raise strong leaders, then we need to take inventory of ourselves. They need to see us walking the talk. So, there are two objectives for this module. Number one is to help you better understand what influence is, which helps us to better understand true leadership. And number two, to help you increase your influence with your children, whether they're young children, teenagers, or adults. Let's begin by doing an influence inventory because before we move forward, we need to know where we are. You may want to pause this video at this point so that you can take some notes. I'll be asking several questions that you should reflect on, and it's important to be real so that you can get a true pulse on where you are. So, question one. Who do you influence? Another way to ask this question is, who do you attract? Now, the principle here is that as a leader, we attract who we are, and that may or may not be who we want to attract. Now, that's deep. Think about the people you attract. That's who you are. Now, that may or may not land well for you. In any event, it can be sobering and therefore a good place to work from. Let's tease this out a bit and look at who you influence. This isn't an exhaustive list, but it may trigger some thoughts for you. Do you influence leaders or followers? There's nothing wrong with either, but consider what your vision is and which one yields the greatest impact, influencing leaders or followers. Thinkers or doers? Those who are paralyzed by analysis, they dream about what could be, or those who get things done. Now, I don't condone doing without thinking. In fact, it's important to take time to think things through. However, action must be taken. So, thinkers or doers, or a combination of both. Do you influence big picture thinkers or small picture thinkers? Self-centered or other-centered people? Now, I love this quote. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. In fact, those who think less of themselves often think of themselves a lot. Do you influence positive or negative people? Secure or insecure people? Do you influence passionate or apathetic people? Or something in between? Givers or takers? Eagles or turkeys? I love this quote by Adam Sandler. It's hard to fly with eagles when you're surrounded by turkeys. Now take a few minutes to consider the kinds of people you influence, those you attract, and make sure to write it down. So question 2, how do you influence others? The principle here is how you influence people will determine how many, how long, and how effectively you influence them. So there are several methods of influencing others. I'll describe them from worst to best, and you decide where you land as it pertains to your relationship with others, and in particular, your relationship with your children. Now, before I review them, it's important to know that most of us have never been taught this. And so, how can we know what we don't know, right? So, when you figure out which method of influence best describes you right now, it doesn't mean that you need to be stuck there. You can learn to influence more effectively. There also may be a tendency to think about others as I tell you these. Like you'll think about that principal or that boss that is a horrible leader. And so that'll pop up. And when it does, just bring it back to you because really you can't change them. You can only change you. So the first and worst way to influence is by force. Here, there's no choice but to follow. Then there's intimidation, the my way or the highway type of leadership. We've all encountered that. Then there's manipulation. This type of leader pits one person against another, or they have a win lose situation where they always have the upper hand. The positional leader is followed because they have authority. A position doesn't make you a leader, but it gives you time to become better at it. Then there's the exchange leader. This method produces a win win situation where the leader wants to win, but he or she also is looking out for others. A persuasive leader is followed because people want to. They're invited and they accept. And the best method of influence is that of respect, where followers do out of respect for the leader. Leaders like Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela. Question number 3. How many do you influence? The principle here is that as a leader, the number of people who follow is based on your level of influence. So everyone influences somebody. Few people influence a lot of people. So let's consider a scale from 0 to 10. Let's say that your leadership level is at a 3, but your leadership potential is at a 7. What stands in the gap of these two are your actual leadership skills, your willingness to change, and your willingness to grow. This is what can take you to your potential and even beyond and bring others along. So, timing is so important. When do you influence others? The principle here is that our value and significance rises when we influence others at a time when it's most needed. Here's a quote by Winston Churchill. There comes a special moment in everyone's life, a moment for which that person was born. That special opportunity, when he seizes it, will fulfill his mission, a mission for which he is uniquely qualified. In that moment, he finds greatness. It is his finest hour. And if you know the journey of Winston Churchill, he found his finest moment during World War II. Leaders have a sense of teachable moments, of catalyst times, and breakthrough opportunities. Breakthroughs, these aha moments, they can occur in organizations and in people when they hurt enough that they have to change, when they learn enough that they want to change, and when they receive enough that they are able to change. All three must be present for breakthroughs. Question number 5. Why do you influence others? The principle here is that your why for doing something ultimately determines what you do. Having the right motives are crucial to people because leadership functions on the basis of trust. So let's talk about motives versus character. Questioning your motives is different than questioning your character. Motives are usually attached to specific situations and are most often short in duration. Character, however, is connected to the heart and is what you do in all situations. Therefore, you can have a temporary flawed motive and still have solid character. But if you continuously have wrong motives, it's a result of bad character. So the last question, question number 6, is where do you influence others? And too often people believe that they cannot influence others because they don't have a leadership position. Well, right before starting my podcast, I didn't have a leadership position and I had very little influence in education. Since then, I've had many opportunities to connect with top level leaders in education and other disciplines. So I've certainly grown a lot and I'm helping others to grow as well. So remember, the position doesn't make the leader makes the position, and leadership is about influence. Some other myths. When I get to the top, then I will learn to lead. Well, you will be tomorrow what you're preparing for today. So if you're not learning today how to be a leader, chances are you won't learn tomorrow. Another myth. If I were on top, everyone would follow. If people don't follow you now, they won't follow you then. Lastly, when I get to the top, I will be able to do anything. Truth is, the higher you go, the less options you have. You can do a lot, but you can't do anything. There are more responsibilities to consider, other people to serve, other people to lead, and less time for yourself. So, this is the end of Module 1. Make sure to review your notes and reflect on how you can become better at influencing others, and in particular, your children. And before you do anything else, go to our Facebook page and share what you've learned in this module or ask a question and continue the conversation. It's been a joy to serve you, and I'm looking forward to Module 2.